Great. Good morning. I'm Una Daly, the Community College Outreach Manager for the Open Courseware Consortium. And welcome to our February webinar on the Writing Commons, an open textbook community for college-level writers. And by many estimations, English composition, which is what the Writing Commons is all about, is our highest enrolled general education requirement. And Joe and his team are going to talk about the resources that they have developed at the University of South Florida and made into an open community for all instructors and students of college-level English composition. Before we jump right into the session, I'm going to just go over a few housekeeping pieces here about Illuminate, now called Blackboard Collaborate, which is the system we're using this morning. And for those of you who are listening to us without access to a microphone, and even for those of you who do have a microphone, there is a chat window over on the left-hand side where you can type in and ask questions and send comments, and I'll be moderating that. And in addition, you can see the participants up at the top. You may see some folks that you know who are participating in our webinar this morning. It looks like we have slightly over 20 participants, and I know that I'm expecting a few more folks shortly. And bottom of the left-hand column, you will see the audio conference information. If you are simply using the chat window, make sure that you turn off your microphone inside your interface so that we don't get any echoes. Everything's sounding terrific right now, though. All right. If you haven't done so, please introduce yourself in the chat. Mention which institution or organization you're with, and if you have any special interests regarding what you'd like to talk with Joe and his team about. Go ahead and share that there. I want to talk briefly before we get into our main presentation with Joe and his team about some things that are happening with the Open Courseware Consortium. The Open Education Week is coming up next week, and I know many of you are participating in that and presenting. There's local events, live webinars, and short pre-recorded videos as well. If you have not become actively involved thus far, there's still plenty of time to join in next week and attend some of those events. So check out our openeducationweek.org site. And here's a couple of in-person events that the Community College Consortium for OER is going to be attending over the next few months. We will have board members there, and I will be attending a few of these events as well. The Innovations 2020
Welcome to the CCCOER Conference Center. For security verification, please enter your passcode followed by the pound or hash key. Please hold. Thank you. Your passcode is complete. When you hear the tone, you will be the 19th person to join the meeting.
Okay.
Hey, I was fourth before.
And now we're getting. Is the audio back on? Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for that suggestion. All right. Thank you for that. I'm not sure what the technical issue was, but looks like we're back in. I have a chance to look at our advisory board members here, so feel free to contact those folks as well as have ideas for the CCCOER advisory. at this point, I want to just go back to my main slide here for 1 minute and say that Joe Moxley is here with 3 of his colleagues who work on the Writing Commons with him. Quentin Vieregge is here, who is the managing editor for the Writing Commons site. Langbehn, who is the social pedagogy editor, and Katelin Kaiser, who is a student. And they will be presenting in sequence about these different viewpoints on Writing Commons. All right. Without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Joe Moxley, the publisher and CEO of Writing Commons. Joe is a professor of English at the University of South Florida, and he's the director of composition there. And he's published numerous books, articles, and chapters. The core of Writing Commons was originally a commercial textbook that Joe wrote and received a Distinguished Book Award. In addition, Joe's freshman composition program, which is what he directs there at USF, won the 2011-2012 Award of Excellence from the National Council of Teachers of English. So Joe, we look forward to hearing about the Writing Commons today from you and your team.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting myself and Quentin, Karen, and Katelin. We're delighted to share some of the preliminary work that we've been doing on Writing Commons. I use the term preliminary in an academic sense, given the glacier time of academic life. By that I mean I began this project about 10 years ago, even more, depending on one's math abilities. Back in about 2001, I pitched the idea to Langbehn Pearson. And my goal back in back in the day was to develop an interactive textbook that leveraged the new media capabilities of the Internet. I had dreams of having a site that would rival CNN in terms of its visual appeal, but in terms of a pedagogical approach would have interactive features so that not only would you read, for example, how to do an ethnography, but you would also maybe have a quiz about it, maybe be able to share a student-authored ethnography. So I had a vision very early of trying to break out of a PDF sort of format, break out of a linear format. At the time I was very involved in electronic theses and dissertations, and I was very inspired by the notion of new writing spaces. Well, the book was published after, I guess, about a 2 or 3 year period of it being written. And it had, at that time, about 300 articles. And in addition to articles, it had quizzes and it was very comprehensive. I mean, I think at the time you could say it was the equivalent of one of the standard rhetoric textbooks that students pay $100 for in a print format. I mean, that was the goal, to deliver a solid rhetoric textbook that teachers at the time who were interested in leveraging online learning opportunities would then consider. But back in, I guess, 2003 when it was published, I think it was a challenge to the publishers at that time because as the director of a large composition program, I would have some very pleasant people come to my office and try to sell books to me and to the writing program. And at that time, this particular project was called College Writing. And I was a little bit distressed at the time because when I would ask the publisher's reps about the book, even if they were from Pearson, they didn't know about the book. I was happy to receive that award that you mentioned from Computers in Composition. That's a wonderful group of people, and they have a conference this year. It's in the Raleigh-Durham area at NC State. It's a wonderful conference, a wonderful group of people, and Computers in Composition is just a rich resource for people who are interested in ways writing spaces are changing and the way they're changing how people compose and so forth. So I was glad for that recognition, but I felt at the time that the book had gone, even though it was published, it had gone behind a password because the publisher was trying to sell it. But at the time, the publisher didn't really have a model for selling books like that. I think it was a little bit early. I mean, that was kind of the conception. But I was able to get the copyright back. And when that happened, I had a choice. I could sell it to another publisher, and there are some excellent publishers out there that when I got the copyright back, I don't know exactly when that was, but it was around 2008 or 2009. I mean, by then more and more, it was more and more common to be using internet resources, and I think the idea of a major rhetoric being online was less innovated by then and more welcomed by the broader composition community. As you mentioned, composition is one of the largest general education programs in the country. I think Cable Green mentioned that there are about 100,000 users in the country potentially for a resource like this. And at $100, he was talking about saving $1 million for undergraduate education and maybe putting that to other uses. But in any case, I got the copyright back, and I began initially to try to put the project up myself. And then I ran into another problem in the sense that as a writing program director, my experience was that, I didn't want to benefit from my own students. We have, depending on the enrollment each year, we had a large program with about 7,000, sometimes more, sometimes less students. But I didn't want to personally benefit from them. So I had a problem with that because so I also discovered, and I think this is very important to people who are interested in pedagogy and faculty development, I also discovered that faculty love working collaboratively. There's a lot of energy to developing resources. And so we subsequently started writing a number of books for our program. Anyway, I recently came to the realization that it would be possible to work very collaboratively and to open this project not just to composition teachers, but maybe to rethink the project in a way that it would become a resource that any student in any college level writing class could use, even if it were a course, say, in poetry or professional and technical writing. So that became the vision in a way to think about peer production, to think about opening it to the expertise of so many people out there who have years and years of experience in the classroom. And so over the last few years, with help from the people that you're going to hear from shortly, Katelin and Karen, Quentin and Jennifer Vieregge and Diane Donnelly and a number of other people in our program, we came to the idea of having a free resource, an open education resource that hopefully would stretch the boundaries of typical textbooks, would integrate video and quizzes and interactive features, and would empower people, empower the students who want to publish their work, and empower the faculty. So we've come up with this vision collaboratively to peer produce this text so that it meets the needs of not only composition students, ultimately, hopefully, but students in any college level writing class. So I began with, say, 340 articles, and now, as Quentin will share, we've got a new call for papers, and we're sending that out to various listservs with hopes in the beginning that we can grow the composition side, but in the days ahead, we're going to have other calls for papers on other topics related to college level writing. And the last thing I think I should mention is that we are following a process of peer review. We've set up an editorial board of OER leaders and people who are very interested in college level writing, and they're helping us with the review. We've also set up a review board, and we got, I think, our first about 20 or so articles that are now under review by the editorial board and the review board. So just to summarize my comments, I began this as a sole author, kind of hoping to be successful as a textbook author. And then as time evolved, I became more and more interested in the notion of just putting the book out there for free and trying to develop it so that it's as useful as possible for any college level student, and then to use the apparatus of peer review to ensure that the quality was there, because I know that there's a lot of information for free out there, but we want to really vet this work and take it through a rigorous peer review process. So that gives you an overall sense of I think the rationale that informed the development of the book, and hopefully a sense of the vision. I want to turn over the conversation to Katelin Kaiser, who's not only an undergraduate, but she's also one of the web editors. She's done a lot of work on the project as a volunteer, and has been, I think, she's our official voice of undergraduate students. I'm always kidding her about that. Katelin?
Joe, this is Una, and just before Katelin starts, did you want to go back to any of your slides at this point, or do we want to just go straight into the web?
No, let's go straight into Katelin.
Okay, all right, excellent. Go ahead, Katelin.
Hi, everybody. I am an undergraduate at USF, majoring in philosophy, and I'm going to discuss the 6 different sections at Writing Commons. We have the writing process, information literacy, research process, collaboration, genres, new media, as well as a table of contents and a glossary. The page that I'm going to discuss is understand when citations.
Welcome to the CCC Confer Conference Center. For security verification, please enter your passcode. Welcome to the CCC Confer Conference Center. For security verification, please enter your passcode followed by the pound or hash key. Please hold. Thank you. Your passcode is confirmed. Please wait. When you hit the tone, you will be the, person Join the meeting.
Okay.
Working again. Okay, great.
All right. So people couldn't hear me. I'm just going to start out by saying what I like about Writing Commons as a student. The texts are as the page I just showed you. I was able to find everything I needed, and it was easy to understand. The pages are also applicable, easy to write, easy to apply when I'm writing. They provide questions I can use while in the writing process to help me guide. Okay, to help me guide my writing in the correct direction. Some pages have simple tips to mind, while others have a checklist to use while I'm writing.
Hang on there just one second, Katelin. If you switch to your phone, could you please turn your microphone off on your computer, because we're getting a little echo. Sorry. Go ahead, Katelin. Yeah, we have people out there who needs to do a *6 on their phone.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah, I realize that. If you could please off your side conversation with a *6. Thanks very much. Go ahead, Katelin.
Okay. What I was saying was pages are also applicable. They're easy to apply when I write. As an undergraduate student, they provide questions I can use while in the writing process to help me guide my writing in the correct direction. As well, some pages have simple tips to keep in mind while others are writing. They're also integrative and engaging compared to a traditional textbook. As a student, I found in many traditional textbooks, they usually direct you towards other internet sources to supplement the readings, which can be annoying. You don't want to have your laptop open and as well as a hardcover print textbook. At Writing Commons, students don't have to search to find different supplementary sources to understand what they're reading. Everything is at your fingertips in one page, including videos and links. Additionally, as a student, I support Writing Commons because I can avoid paying high costs for print textbooks. This means I can use the extra money I save from paying for print textbooks to put towards gas money as a commuter student, or I can pay for classes I need to take in the future. For some students, having a free online textbook like Writing Commons means not having to decide what classes to take based on affordability, or having to drop a class because they cannot afford the high cost of print textbooks required. I also know Writing Commons will always be at its latest edition. I don't have to worry about receiving an outdated textbook or outdated information like in print textbooks. Also, if I'm still confused about a writing topic or how to correctly use the elements of writing, I can tweet at Writing Commons with my question and receive an answer back. As a student, I support great projects for community colleges as well as universities, and I think this is also great for high school students to use. Karen, as I was saying about the tweeting Writing Commons, will further extend on how Writing Commons will use Twitter to benefit students. She is a social pedagogy person for Writing Commons, and she will discuss other elements. All right, Una, do you want to point to our PowerPoint? This is Karen.
All righty.
Okay, so I think we're moving through some of our slides here.
Caitlin, did you want me to start you up at the beginning of your slides? Are you?
No, we're good.
All righty, excellent. I'm sorry, I was just checking in with our support people, trying to figure out how we can avoid losing audio again. All right. Thank you very much, Katelin, for presenting on the wonderful resources that are available for students up there. At this point, I'd like to introduce Karen Langbehn, who is the Social Pedagogy Editor for Writing Commons. Karen is a doctoral student in English at USF with a concentration in rhetoric and composition, and she's most interested in the rhetoric of science, science policy, and technology, as well as the public understanding of science and technology, and new media composing, not too surprisingly given what Karen's going to talk to us about. So Karen, please take it away.
Okay. As Ina mentioned, I'm going to be talking about social pedagogy and collaboration as it pertains to writingcommons.org. As Dr. Moxley had mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Writing Commons is most definitely a collaborative project, not simply for the sake of the spirit of collaboration, but also because collaboration allows us to do so much more widely with a wider scope than any of us could do individually. So that is a huge part of the way in which we've designed the site and the way in which we continue to redesign the site based on our recursive model. So what I'll be talking about today quickly is social pedagogy and collaboration, centering the focus of what I'll be explaining around how we see collaboration and what's in it for all of us, being students, all writers, students, teachers, etc. So because our model is collaborative, we're constantly asking ourselves about how best to embrace all levels of collaboration. More experienced writers with writers, teachers with teachers, and writers with students. So the emphasis on the content of our site reflects this. And it's even more so apparent in the way that we're emphasizing web text and multimedia submissions, which Quentin will go into detail about in a moment. So what I'll be doing today is guiding us through a modified web tour of these resources, so the resources that pertain to collaboration. And in order to do that, I'm going to start us at our collaboration page of the site. And it'll just take a moment for me to get to that section here. Okay. All right. So I want to walk through at least two of the pages briefly, and then explain an upcoming project that we're preparing to launch, hopefully very soon. So the first page I want to look at is titled Document Review Guidelines, and that should be appearing on your screen now. So this page focuses on lessons on collaboration of students with students, so peer review. And so there are two significant aspects of this page that I want to point out. First is the 7 tips for responding to writing. It's a simple enough framework, but what's special about it in terms of what Writing Commons offers that would be different from a traditional one-dimensional textbook is that the communication is more accessible. And what I mean by that is that the 7 tips are written in ways that provide a step-by-step parsing of this of typical academic revision language, and it puts it in terms that students are able to easily understand. So the explanations are accessible, and even more importantly than that, most of the pertinent terminology is hyperlinked on this page, and so the student isn't having to, or the writer isn't having to navigate away from this page in order to understand the context in a wider scope of what responding to others' writing is all about. So our design is intentionally responsive or intuitive in that way. And when we're talking about web text, as Quentin will discuss later, that's an example of a facet of web text that we feel is, useful to our students and writers. Okay, so the second page I want to look at briefly is in the collaboration section as well. And the title of this page is Ask Questions to Improve Your Documents. And this page is helpful because we've designed it, or we believe it's helpful because we designed it to provide self-reflexive questions to enable writers with individual agency to critically assess their own work. So in a way, it's a modified peer-teacher review framework. And just as the page we looked at before, there are pertinent terms that are hyperlinked on the page. So again, the student is able to hover over the terminology and read a brief sentence or two long definition in order to further clarify or contextualize the nature of revision and collaboration as it pertains to our purposes of Writing Commons. The second asset here is that in terms of content, and that writers benefit from specific critical responses to their writing. And oftentimes these responses derive from pointed questions, like the 10 questions listed on this site. So not only is the terminology hyperlinked, but the questions are intentionally specific and direct. And we've also chosen these questions because from our experiences, they're the most popular questions in terms of what students are asking about their writing to their peers and to their teachers, to their tutors, etc. So as Katelin mentioned before, the site, one of the benefits is that is the real-time nature of the site, in that these are questions that we believe are the most up-to-date, popular, significant to students and to writers at the moment. And then the last thing that I want to briefly mention is our Twitter project. And what we're attempting to do there is to link a social networking tool like Twitter with our academic social networking space of Writing Commons to facilitate communication between the two and to expand the text that Twitter allows in a way that gives the student a space to ask live questions. So essentially we're building a blog tool into writingcommons.org so that it facilitates this real-time conversation between writers. As a way of speaking to our commons of exchanges about writing and writing challenges, and providing, opening up a creative learning space for students in courses where they're asked to write college-level papers. And also to allow for interactive space for different levels of expertise to submit responses, knowledge sharing, knowledge exchanges, etc., about topics that are pertinent to writers now. And so the idea is to tweet pertinent questions such as, how should I start writing my statement of purpose? How do I determine what the program wants, and how do I connect the two, for instance, and then linking that Twitter question to a quote answer on writingcommons.org so that not only our staff or editors can provide an answer, but the space is used by anyone who'd like to contribute an answer or a subsequent question about that Twitter tweet. So that's something that's in progress right now, a way of extending our site into social networking tools that can be accessed to our site in the ways that speak to our students' needs and the ways in which they're comfortable using technology in academic and social contexts. And I'll move back to our PowerPoint here in a moment. Okay. And okay. And Una, that's it for me.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Karen. One question that occurred to me before we move on to Quentin was you used the terminology web text, and I think you've all used that. And I think somewhat unique. Would you like to share maybe a brief definition of web text, just so that we make sure we're all on the same page about what that means?
Sure, absolutely. Actually, I believe that I can elaborate if necessary, but I believe that Quentin will be addressing that in his description. Quentin, would you like me to address that now, or would you like?
That's actually the very first bullet point.
Okay, then I'll hand it over to you.
Excellent. All right. I was being, yes, I was jumping the gun there. All right. Well, now I'd like to introduce Quentin Vieregge, who is the managing editor of Writing Commons. Quentin is an assistant professor of English at the University of Wisconsin-Barron County. He teaches first-year composition there, business communication, film, and religious literature. Quentin also directs the writing tutors at the Campus Learning Center, and his research interests include collaborative writing through peer production. So Quentin, you sound like a very busy gentleman.
Well, it's exciting up here.
All right. And I'm going to just click you to your next slide, Quentin.
Okay, so that was a perfect transition, your question, because the first thing that I'd like to talk about is how we're defining the word web text. And the way we're defining the word web text is, I would characterize it through two words, multimedia and interactivity. So our website is really aimed towards an undergraduate audience and also an audience of instructors and professors. And we're living in a very sort of visual age, and there's lots of different learning styles, right? Some people learn through text, others through sound, others visually. Some people need to see things kinetically, so like screen videos. And so what we really mean by web text is we want articles that are not just written textually, but might bring in a YouTube video or have hyperlinks to other websites. Or part of the web text might be textual and part of it might be a podcast. So bringing in multimedia and trying to be accessible to students who learn in different ways. And with that in mind, I'd ask my colleagues to go to the ethnography page.
Okay.
The ethnography page can be found by clicking on, just for everyone else's benefit, clicking on research services and then empirical research. And then underneath that is the ethnography page.
Quentin, I believe it's us.
Oh, it is? Okay, that's great. Okay, so this is an example of a multimedia.
So sorry, when
okay.
I want to click on the.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're on it, Quentin. Sorry about that.
Keep talking.
It's coming up now. Now it's there.
Yeah.
So the ethnography page would be an example of a web text page. As you can see, there's not only text, but there's YouTube videos, 2 of them. There's a careful use, a rhetorical use of hyperlinks at the bottom of the page. The text is, it's not only short, but it's easily scannable. Someone could both read this in depth or get the main idea simply by surveying it. And it reaches out to different learning styles and takes advantage of everything the web has to offer, right? And so we're really looking especially for creative web text that either people linking to pre-existing videos, creating their own videos, animation, PowerPoint videos. You know, the sky is the limit. And so that's really what we're aiming at with web text. And now, if you guys could go back to the PowerPoint slide, I'd like to talk briefly about the submissions process and the review process. So the submissions process, we aim at a really quick turnaround. So if you're interested in submitting to Writing Commons, we really accept web text from anyone. We even welcome them from undergraduates. They all go through the same peer-reviewed process. But we encourage web text on any sort of specialization, not just in terms of first-year composition, but creative writing, technical communication. And since our texts are so short, 1,000 words typically, though longer is fine, the turnaround time, at least on the initial commentary, would be about 4 weeks. So that's a very sort of fast time in terms of academic peer reviews. We have a series of review editors. Some of them are writing program administrators. Others are associate or assistant professors. Some work at community colleges, others research universities. So we're trying to make sure we have a broad perspective in terms of our review editors. Each web text will be reviewed twice by 2 separate review editors, and they'll either accept it, reject it, or accept it with revisions. If the web text is accepted or accepted with revisions, even if it's rejected, I will then, as the managing editor, let the person who submitted the web text know. They'll revise it based on the review editor's comments, and then turn it in again, and that'll be another 4-week turnaround period. And if it's accepted, it'll immediately be published on the web. So the first time the text is reviewed, it's a blind peer review process. So the review editors don't know who you are, and you don't know who they are. But if it's accepted with revisions, we go ahead and let the author know who the review editors are. And that way, at that point, you can collaborate with them, ask them any questions, make sure the document is as good as it possibly can be. And we're really aiming, one of the long-term goals we're aiming at here is not just to have a practical, accessible Writing Commons website. That's a huge part of our main goal, but we also want to have something that's scholarly and peer-reviewed so that people who submit to our site can then put it on their resumes or CVs as an academic publication. So we're really looking to find texts that are accessible for student audience, that are practical, as Karen said, that are written using terminology and vocabulary that can be used in the classroom. We want web texts that perhaps can be modified so that they can be used as activities in the classroom. And finally, I will talk to you briefly about how you can contribute to the Writing Commons today and then long term, so we can move on to the next slide. Right now, we're especially looking for first-year composition articles. We are trying to collect a number of texts so that we can use them in the USF first-year writing program next year, and so that we can flesh out and build up our compendium of FYC composition web text through Writing Commons. So on the website, if you go to About Us, and then you go to Contribute, and then you go to Call for Papers, you will see a detailed list of all the things, all the different articles we're looking for right now. And if any of those meet your area of expertise or interest, we would love for you to write one for us. And if so, you can either send an email to me or send one to Jennifer@writingcommons.org. My email is Quentin@writingcommons.org. Hers is Jennifer@writingcommons.org. And we will we'll work with you to make sure that what you're writing is something that would be useful for our site. Long term, we are going to be looking at new media text, com text, creative writing text, even literary analysis text. So we want this to be very broad in scope, but immediately we're just focusing on first-year composition. And usually the web text would be sent directly to me, but this first time with the FYC, since we're using this specifically for our in-print textbooks as well, if you have any questions, you can also send it directly to Jennifer@writingcommons.org. She's the editor of the USF composition textbook. And that's really all I had to say. The other thing, I'll just close with one final thing, which is if you go to About Us, and then you click on Contribute, you can see the Guide for Authors, and that'll give you a detailed explanation of everything that we're talking about and how to contribute. It's a peer-reviewed academic source that you can put on your resume or CV, and it's a very dialogic process. We want to work with you to make it the best web text as possible. So that's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Quentin. Joe and company, can you return the screen back? Thank you. Great. So there were a few questions. Laura out there was asking about accessibility for differently abled learners. Can one of you out there address accessibility from that perspective?
Well, that might be a challenge for us. Right now, we've just put it up as simply as we can. Suppose some of the text to audio readers could read it. I'm not sure how they read hyperlinks, so I'm not sure it's as accessible as we ultimately would like it. But at this point, we've been in the process of trying to take what we have and make it as easy to navigate as possible. That said, there is a very comprehensive table of contents. There's a search map. Down the line, we can imagine this being available in various EPUB formats, which I think bring increase the accessibility.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. There is a group at Utah State, WebAIM, which provides a tool. It's called I think it's called Wave. That if you go to the WebAIM site, and it allows you to check your website for accessibility. And I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards about that as well, because that is a part of being accessible for learners. And
Sure.
Very important. And so I'm glad Laura brought that up. Yes, and thank you, Elaine. Put the tool out here, which is from the W3C organization on web accessibility. Thank you, Elaine, for that. So we are open for questions of any kind. I'm going back here and checking the questions. If I missed your question, please feel free at this point to jump in, either over your microphone, your phone, or put that in
I noticed there's a Quentin 1 here. What's up with that? Are there 2 Quentins on this webinar? That would be amazing.
I had to log off and log back in.
Oh.
Well, I think as we wait here for some questions to come in, or perhaps Joe and his team would like to have some closing comments, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming today. I think that the Writing Commons is a very valuable resource and something that I think first-year instructors and students can certainly make use of. So I want to thank Joe and his team for putting this together. Joe said this is their first public presentation, and so I think this is only going to get much better in the future, so it's very exciting.
Well, we've been excited to see folks using it. We've taken a while to develop it, a couple of years, if you will. And in that time, with the Google Analytics tracking, we've had about 60,000 folks look at it, about 200 people a day. And it's fun. You know, it's fun to see folks from around the world logging on. And of course, you like to see it when they actually spend a little time reading a page. And so we have hopes for it to develop. And
that's wonderful, and it does sound like you're getting a lot of hits.
Someone's asked a question about an alternative high school. Honestly, we have tried to make it very readable, and we plan to continue doing so. I think it's a very accessible text. I would think it would be appropriate for high schools. Thank you, Brandon.
As we're waiting for more questions to come in, I just wanted to mention that tentatively scheduled our March webinar will be on creating OER-friendly policies at your college campus. And we'll have 3 members of our board presenting, and that's tentative as well. I'm not sure that Robin has confirmed on that, but this is an issue that comes up for faculty who are interested in getting involved in open textbooks and open education resources. Sometimes they find that they actually have to educate their administrators and other faculty in their departments. And so there's been a request to have a webinar on how that process should best be navigated. So let's forward to seeing you in March as well. All right, and it looks like we had another question here from Adam. Do you see that, Joe?
Yes. I think it could. At the University of South Florida, if you go to fyc. Oh wait, let me explain. The question is, could a college base an entire English course exclusively on this textbook? What course would it fit best with? Well, it would work with, we have 2 courses at USF, Composition 1, Composition 2, English ENC 1101, ENC 1102 it's sometimes called. And given that this was originally published to compete in that market, I don't see any reason why it can't compete in that market in terms of satisfying a typical composition course. Our courses are, you can view them at fyc.usf.edu. We're in the process of taking some of the earlier materials developed here through peer review, and our plan is to use Writing Commons for our program with about 7,000 students, and we don't perceive too big of a problem with that. We have outsourced some of our readings of published authors inside a Blackboard shell behind an EdID password because of copyright concerns. But Writing Commons itself is a Creative Commons copyright, so the material there is easily accessible. So I mean, sure, you can develop a writing course around it. We've done it. We're doing it.
All right. We had another question here from Terry. She was asking, can I use it as a reference source on how to write ethnography for an anthropology assignment?
There is a rough chapter on ethnography, and it covers the basics of doing what some people would call microethnography. I mean, there's a big debate in the ethnographic community about whether or not anything under a year is real ethnography. So, but sure, if you're talking about classroom ethnography, I don't see why not. And do we expect those materials to develop? Well, we hope so, because ethnography is a really popular genre, blending original primary research with secondary research.
All right, and Joe, I just wanted to add one comment. The site is an open site. It's Creative Commonsly licensed, correct, Joe? I don't think we talked about that specifically.
Yes, that's correct. It's on the footer there. Mm-hmm.
So what that means, for just to elaborate for people who might not be as familiar with Creative Commons, that means that you can take materials from this site and use it freely in your classroom. You can use it really in any aspect of your educational practice, and you can modify it and repurpose it as well. All right, we have another question from Brenna. She said she's asking here for her class. I could probably add reading some type of classic literature easily available via libraries and ebooks, and that's correct as well. Brenna, obviously, there's a lot of classic literature is in the public domain, which means it's truly the copyright license has expired as opposed to using a Creative Commons license. And we have another question here from Adam.
Well, Adam is asking, what do you do? A course that's revised every 3 years. Are we going to push out the new content? At this point, we do plan a newsletter which will keep a record of new essays as they're added. I suppose someplace on the site we can keep a record of that. It's a really good question. We hadn't really thought about it, but we'll think about it now that Adam's asked the question.
Right. Well, we're just over the 10 o'clock hour. I want to thank everyone for coming today. I'm very sorry about the technical difficulties. Those are fairly unusual, but I guess it was Murphy's Law today. And once again, I want to thank Joe and Katelin, Karen, and Quentin for their presentation today on this wonderful resource, writingcommons.org. And I think we can stick around for a few more minutes if there's additional questions. Oh, all right. We had another question from Alicia here.
Well, no. I mean, this source, we have this intention. This source is openly available on the internet. There are no passwords at all at this point to access the content.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
That's a very good question, Alicia. And what a Creative Commons open license means is that materials are available without a password, and in addition, they can be revised and repurposed for your own classroom. So those are excellent questions that you're asking. Yeah, thank you, Jackie, for pointing that out in the chat window. You can actually save this presentation, the slideshow itself, by going up to the File menu and clicking on Save, and then selecting the whiteboard, and you can save all of those slides to a PDF. We will also post the live archive of the webinar, along with the audio gaps, I'm afraid, but those will be posted by tomorrow morning up on both the Open Courseware blog and also on the College Open Textbook site.
Well, thank you, Una, for inviting us. We're glad to visit.
Yes, thanks very much, Joe. I learned an awful lot today and in the last week in helping you put the presentation together, and I think this is a really exciting possibility for English composition instructors and students. So thank you, and I think at this point we're going to sign off.
Okay, take care.